Hey everybody, John Lynn here with people Coffee Roasters. And today we're going to talk about how to make coffee and a Chemex. People Coffee Roasters.
John, I'm going to surprise pop in here because you're really muffled.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Is it easier to hear now?
You're good.
Okay, there we go.
Hi, everyone. This is the joy of live streaming.
Woo! Having fun at the warehouse. Okay, I'll try to enunciate a little better, try to talk a little bit louder. We're just on a basic laptop doing the best we can here. But yes, we're going to do a Chemex today. There are many ways that you can do a Chemex. You look online, there's many different methods and rhyme and reasons to why people do things certain ways. We're just going to talk about how we like to make or brew with the Chemex here at Hugo Coffee Roasters. First thing that we're going to want to do is weigh out our coffee. I've got 50 grams of our Nutric light roast right here, and that's what we're going to be making today. So we're going to go ahead and throw that in the grinder, get that ground up, use nice freshly ground coffee. And the coarseness we're looking for with a Chemex is something a little bit coarser than your typical drip grind, something more like sea salt. So we're going to get that ground up. Got our water right here. We want our water just off boiling. So if you want to bring your water to a boil, like I have here, I'm transferring it into a different kettle so it's just off boiling by the time we use it. Or if you have an electronic kettle, you can set it to whatever degree you need for your elevation. Here at Park City, water is going to boil differently, obviously, than if you're at sea level in Seattle. All right, so we've got our coffee ground right here. We're going to take our Chemex, and we're going to take our Chemex filters. Sometimes they're round, sometimes they're square, but they are specifically for the Chemex. Ours are just a square piece of paper that's been folded over. What we want to do is take one side, open that up, and make a little funnel out of it, just like this. And it's important that we use the thicker side on the same side as our spout on this Chemex. So one side will have one thickness, one sheet. The other side will have three. And where we folded it over, the three side is going to go right where that spout is. From there, we're going to take our hot water, and we're just going to go ahead and pour some water all over this filter. There are multiple reasons why we like to do this. The first reason is because this filter is made out of paper. It's got a lot of little dust and paper particles all over it. And we just want to get that paper taste out of there. We want to really rinse that filter out. You can do an experiment at home with probably any filter that you do have. And if you just pour some filtered water through your filter, give that a taste, it will taste just like paper. So we want to rinse that. We're going to go ahead and dump that. We don't want any of this water. The second reason we're going to go ahead and pour water in here is we like to get a firm seal of the filter onto the glass. So we're going to get our water poured on there, and it's really going to stick nicely to the edge of the glass. And the third reason is we really want to heat up that glass. We want to pour this hot water in here, get that glass nice and hot, so when we do start brewing coffee, we don't have cold glass that's sucking all the heat out of our coffee. We want to have hot glass so we can keep our coffee in there nice and hot throughout our brew process. And for the same reason we want to keep the glass hot, we also want to keep our mug hot. So we're going to go ahead, pour a couple inches of water in our mug, let that sit while we brew. That way we can just dump this right beforehand and we have a nice warm mug of coffee. We've got our Chemex, we've got our 50 grams of coffee, ground to the coarseness of sea salt. We're going to go ahead and tear out our scale. At Hugo Coffee Roasters, we like to do 4 pours. So we're going to take this, we're going to pour some water in, we're going to stop, we're going to do that 4 different times. Our first pour, we're going to pour in 100 grams of water. And this first pour is just to saturate all those coffee grounds. I wish I could show you a little bit better. I might try to get in there and show you guys a little bit. But we have something going on called the bloom. So when we pour water on this freshly roasted coffee, it's going to really puff up. It's going to kind of bloom over. And so we just want to pour enough water in there to get all those grounds saturated, let them release those gases. And then we're going to wait, let that water run through, let that coffee settle back down before we start our second pour. We want to do twice as much water as we do coffee. So we have 50 grams of coffee in here. So we're going to do 100 grams of water on our first pour. So get that ready. I'm going to start my timer. And we're going to start our pour. We want to go real slow. We want to make sure we're getting as much of the coffee wet, saturated, soaked through as we possibly can. We're at 100 grams of water now, so we're going to stop. And we're going to let this ride for a second. Now, there's a lot of numbers that you're going to see about how long you should let your coffee bloom. This really depends on how fresh your coffee is, what coffee you have in your Chemex. Anywhere from 30 seconds up to a minute and a half is a good range for letting your coffee bloom. So if your coffee is a little bit older, maybe it was pre-ground, you're using something like that, 30 seconds is fine. If your coffee is a little bit fresher, it could take longer. And how you tell is you're going to go ahead and wait for that coffee to settle back down. Once it stops bubbling up and starts settling back down into the Chemex, you can go ahead and start your second pour. This coffee we started our second pour 1 minute in. So we're on our second pour right now, and we're going to pour 200 grams of water into our Chemex. We want to do concentric circles. So we're going to start pouring in the middle, as nice even of a pour as we can. We're going to slowly work our way out and then slowly work our way back in. We're going to try to saturate all the coffee as much as we can. And you're going to want to really focus on hitting as much of the dark spots as you can. The lighter spots are coffee that's a little bit, has more water to it, a little wet. The darker spots are going to be the spots that are a little more dry. Okay. Another minute has passed by. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pour another 200 grams of water into our Chemex. Once again, we're going to go real slow, even pour. Nice circles, making sure to hit the dark spots. And there we go. So now our total weight of the coffee we're brewing is at 500 grams. Remember, we did 100 grams of water for the first pour, 200 for the second, 200 for the third. Now our last pour, we're going to do another 200 grams, which is going to bring us up to 700 grams of water total. And that's going to give us roughly 20 to 24 ounces of coffee, I believe. So enough for 2 small mugs. And these numbers can change depending on your preference, how you like your coffee, even what coffee you're brewing. You know, sometimes you might want to put 800 grams of water in here. Sometimes you might only do 600. So that coffee to water ratio is really up to you, kind of what you like. But I think this is a great jumping off point for you to taste and kind of see exactly what you like. We're going to do our last 200 gram pour right here. Bring this up to 700 grams. There we go. Now we just have a little bit of a waiting game. We're going to wait for this coffee to drain through. Go ahead and dump this water out of my mug. Get it ready for coffee. Now, when you're making your Chemex, there is An appropriate time range from when you start your timer on that first pour to when the last drips should be coming through in your Chemex. Obviously, this range is a little bit large, especially if you're looking at that 30-second bloom time versus a minute and 30-second bloom time. So depending on the day and what coffee you're using, your times might change a little bit for the Chemex. If your coffee takes less than 3.5 minutes, it means that your grind is much too coarse. That water is going through your coffee at much too fast of a pace. It's going to be under extracted. It's going to be weak, not a coffee that we're going to want to drink. At the other end of the spectrum, if this is taking more than 6 minutes to brew, that grind is much too fine. We're going to get some over extracting. It's going to take forever. It's going to puddle up and sit in your filter, and it's just not going to be a pleasant cup of coffee. I like to say a really good time for me, not including that first pour, that first bloom time that we set that aside. About 4 minutes for me is a really great time. So kind of that 4.5 minutes, 5-minute range with this much coffee is really good. You could go a little less, you could go a little bit more on your time, but you want to focus on if it's taken less than 3 minutes, less than even 3.5 minutes, you're going to want to adjust that grinder. Also, if it's taking more than 6 minutes, you're also going to want to go ahead and adjust that grinder. Okay, so we're totally done here now. We're at 5.5 minutes. Discard our filter and our coffee. Pour this in our mug. And we are ready to roll. We've got our Hugo coffee right here. Little hot still. Usually I like to let this sit for 1 to 2 minutes, not quite as long as you would need to let a French press sit and kind of cool down for you, but it's pretty close to ready to drink right out of the Chemex as soon as you're done. Thanks very much for watching. Really appreciate it. Go have a good weekend and make yourself some good coffee. Have a good day. Bye-bye.